Welcome to another episode of the Bank Free Blueprint Podcast. And on today's episode, we have with us Dani Beit-Or. And Dani, today we're going to be talking to our listeners about what it is that we can do if we're having challenges making things happen. We know that real estate is a really good investment option. We know that there's a lot of opportunities out there, but whether we're active or passive, sometimes there are things that are holding us back, and whether it's just ordinary procrastination, or if it's certain things that happen in our lives, or if it's the strategy that we're working with. So we'll be talking about that. But first of all, welcome, Dani. I want to welcome you to the show. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Always a pleasure, speaking with you, and maybe sharing some wisdom and knowledge.
Yeah,
always appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity, Tom.
Thank you. And you are definitely well versed in giving back and sharing a lot of information, because you are a mentor, a speaker, a coach. You have your business, which is Simply Do It. For real estate investing, and you are in the Bay Area, and so in a bit we'll talk a little bit about how you got into real estate. But let's just start on the question that we really want to answer. If I know that real estate is good, I know that there are opportunities. I'm having a hard time just knowing how to get started. What do you have for advice for me as a listener?
So if you're just the beginner, or I'm obviously beginner who wants to get started, I think there's maybe a couple of things you can do. The very early stage of it, go to meetings, be a sponge a little bit for a month or two or three. That's okay. Learn. Get your kind of feeling of what is the right investment path or strategy for you. But at some point, you probably want to start, sorry, Tom, for saying that, but I keep saying it all the time. Maybe stop attending meetings for your own sake, because they're always very confusing. But what I see many times is someone is attending a meeting and some guy talks about, self-storage, and you get excited and you decide to do self-storage for the following week, and then you go to the next meeting, and then someone talks about mobile home parks, and that's what you decide to do. And then by the third meeting, some guy talks about, this time is someone with an accent, talks about out-of-state rentals and flips, and this is what you decide to do. And and before you know it, it's been 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and you've done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So I think you got to be spongy a little bit. It's good. Don't stop going to meetings just because I said so. Stop, being distracted. Focus is very, very important.
Yeah. So really understanding, sort of being able to make that decision to get started once you have enough information that you have the ability to really get started and do something.
And I would add to that, maybe instead of attending one meeting, skip one, go by yourself to a coffee shop, sit down and literally write. Okay, here's what I would like to do. Here's what my concerns are. You don't have to make an essay, like in pointers. Okay, this is what my budget. This I would like to go with a mortgage. Here's what I'm afraid, or here's my concerns. Like vacancy. It can be very detailed, or I'm not getting a loan. Once you list, you kind of ID those items. It can be 5 items. It can be 20. It can be more. You'll be able. This is the beginner's real world roadmap, because now you have to tackle, now you know what to tackle. You have identified your targets and you can tackle them. And once you tackle those targets, and then you may not have answers or perfect answers for all of them, but at least you're breaking down your, aspect of investing, or what holding you back, and say, okay, I'll talk to this guy about this. I'll talk to this guy about this. And your research from this point on is going to be very focus on specific issues, and once you're going to get those cleared, then you'll be ready.
I love that idea. I mean, I spend all kinds of time writing lists on everything that I'm doing, and I like that idea of being able to write down. It forces us to go through the thought process of, like you said, what is it that's holding us back? There's one piece of advice that I've given to, I do some coaching on the side. And when we have a challenge, if we write it down, it really helps us get a clear picture of what it is that's holding us back, whether it's in investing or whatever it might be in life. But just a side note, one thing that's also helpful is to imagine yourself now giving yourself advice as to how you move forward.
Which is very hard to do. Very difficult to do, to give yourself advice, especially when you don't have the confidence. So that's why I'm saying go be a sponge a little bit. It's okay. And then stop, pause. And I call this part of your investment, maybe for me, it's one of the most important ones, because you got to map your where you are. You know, mapping is the concerns, mapping is the financials, mapping, and you know what? You can go and take some coaching program and then homework and assignment. And for me, just keep it simple. But I did those items. It will be one of the best thing that you can do. I can tell you from experience, when I've been an investor for many years before as a rental, owner, investor, helping others. And before I decided to turn and start flipping houses several years ago, I sat down and said, okay, what is freaking me out about flipping, right? And remember, I'm the knowledgeable investor, so I'm probably more freaked out than the beginner, right? Because I know more. So it's even a little bit more harder for me to switch because I'm so knowledgeable. But I sat down and I wrote. I remember I still have not the list, but I still show those items when I speak, because I want to tackle those points. Now I know what's my fear. It's much easier for me to tackle it, right? I think that's very, very important, and most of us just don't do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. And also maybe along with that, finding someone that you can team up with, because by teaming up with someone, you're going to be able to get a lot of those questions answered. You're reducing your risk. You're getting your foot in the door. You're building a relationship.
Tom, you're like reading my thoughts. I was like, should I say about this or not? So let me just pick up on that. I can tell you, after working with many investors, those who team up, right, they have a greater chance to succeed. And when I say team up, you don't have to invest together. Just walk the path together, hold each other accountable, do like assignments or review properties together, each owning his own. You don't have to partner. Just find that. Think about it as a like in the tech world, they call it a co-founder, right? That will help you. But by the way, only one other partner. So 2, 3 is already too much noise. Find one buddy in one of those meetups. Say, hey, this is what you want to do. This is what I want to do. Let's meet together. Discuss it through. Look at properties. It will help you confidence. It will help make sure you're not missing things. And that, I think, I always say in my lectures, this is one of my tips or suggestions. Find that investment buddy. One, no more, just one. Excellent point.
Yeah, and when we're doing that, if it's done in a way, I really like what you said about teaming up. It doesn't have to be a partnership. So it's creating an alliance where both parties can work together. You can share in the benefits of the deal. You can share in profits, share in what you're bringing to the deal, all of that. But doing it in a way where it's 2 separate entities coming together.
Correct.
Rather than spending, and this is something that I find with a lot of people, where they get so caught up in creating the perfect, like the LLC, and get so caught up in the administrative piece of it to have everything perfectly set up, ready to go. Now, I'm not saying that an LLC isn't important, but to make sure that you keep it in sort of in the right level of importance of things to do. Action, getting something done at 80% is far better than getting nothing done at 100%. Right. So just
owning the real estate is more important than setting up the entity.
Yeah, right.
Some people like, oh, let me set up everything. You put so much energy, and where's the property? So what's the main thing here, right? What's the most important thing? Investing or entitizing?
Yeah. And it's so easy to get caught at the starting gate where it's like, I think I'm ready. I'm almost ready, just a little bit more. And it tends to not happen. So no, that's great. And any other thoughts on the person that's really just the beginner, and we like to say there's the active side of the equation of real estate investing, and there's a passive side. I look at it as there's a spectrum. And so on the active side, you could be the beginner that is just brand new, or you could be the very seasoned active investor. And so there's a spectrum there. But even on the passive side, you could be the passive investor where you really don't do anything except maybe put money into a fund, and that's totally passive, or you're putting money alongside of an active investor with limited participation. So we just talked a bit about the very left side of the equation, which would be very new, beginner, just getting started. But as we're going down that spectrum, any thoughts as we go through that, each of those areas?
Absolutely. So let me just reference the point of active or passive.
Mm-hmm.
It also goes back to this map yourself kind of a stage, right? Because if you are, when you try to determine how to go about investing altogether, at least at any point you can make the changes to it. But let's use an example. Let's say you're a super busy person, have zero experience, no interest or no time. You say, for me, it's very relevant to be passive. So at that point, when you're mapping all those items, okay, I'd rather be passive. By the way, if you decide to be passive, that's okay. You can change it in a year or 2 or 3 or 6 months. It's not set for life. So you can make that decision. Right now, it's better for you to be passive. Okay. And then that should also dictate what kind of investment you're going to make versus if you're going to be active. So absolutely, it all comes down to that kind of, a core or very basic point, point or step, very, very basic and important step. Now,
yeah, and I would just add to that, you can even be wearing two hats. In one project, you may be totally passive.
Absolutely.
Another project, that may be your pet project where you really want to have hands-on involvement. So we
have those. We have investors that are very active, involved on the rental side, and then when they come and work with us on the flipping side, they're very passive because the system we created makes. It's by definition, you have to be passive, right? And they're okay with it. So they know here I have to be active, here I have to be passive. So it's exactly what you're saying. It doesn't have to be, you can wear multiple hats respectfully, but maybe as a beginner, you want to also ask yourself, about that active, passive, higher involvement, lower involvement in each deal, and change that, at the same time. Now, as for beginners and experienced investors, what I'm seeing with the experienced investors is that there are also things that are holding them back, right? Experience, let's just make the definition of experience doesn't have to be someone who owns 100 properties or even 20 properties. It can be someone who's done maybe 3, 4, 5 investments, bigger or smaller. So they're not newbie. They're not just, trying to wrap their head around the whole concept of investing. They're already done few things, even 2 investments, right? Let's just make it. But the investor who is at that point, have done maybe 2, has different challenges than the one who has 0, it's his first time. And that investor has different challenges than the one who's actually owning multiple properties. Let's just use an example, right? If you're a beginner, right, you probably wouldn't, let's just say if you're doing rental properties and you're a beginner and you're just about to buy your first investment property and you have 1 mortgage your house or none at all, getting mortgages is not necessarily a challenge for you, assuming you will qualify. If you are an experienced investor, well, depending where you are, a little bit experienced, then obtaining additional mortgages may be not so challenging, but you have to adapt few things, maybe a higher down payment, maybe a little bit more reserve, just as an example. Now, if you own 10 properties or even 8 properties, let's just use that as an example, your challenges mortgage-wise are completely different. Right? There's a whole different things you can do with your portfolio, or how to position or reposition or improve your standing in the aspect of obtaining additional mortgages. There are things to do, right? People think that when you own 10 mortgages, that's it. That's not true. It's just exactly. It's a different set of challenges, right? So financing should not hold you back. When you get to the point that the conventional financing is challenging, we go creative, right? There's solutions there, but it's a different challenges between 0 properties, maybe 2 or 3, and 8 or more. So just to give you an example.
Sure. So your background, maybe can you just describe a little bit of what it is, what model that you focus on with your real estate investing? And so now I know that you do a lot of mentoring and coaching and teaching, but you also invest as well, and the strategies that you teach. Maybe just describe a little bit what it is that what the strategy is, and give a little bit of background around that, if you would.
Sure, we'll be happy to. So I would just say that the coaching and mentoring that I do as part of our business is usually part of investing. It's like a byproduct of investing. So my passion or my focus or my kind of, my vision is, let's not waste valuable time and money on fancy coaching programs, which, by the way, the funny thing is I get investors who come to me after doing those fancy coaching programs, spending whatever thousands of dollars, and now they want to apply the systems that they've learned, and they have no idea. Mm-hmm. So why did you spend $25,000 and you're coming to invest with me if you learned that, right? Use the $25,000 to buy a rental property. We will give you the support and mentoring and coaching as part of it, because that's just how I call it, the on-the-job training type of mentorship, right? I'd rather you go and invest. We will teach you. We have systems and processes while you're actually executing and applying, right? So
yeah, and ever since I've known you, which has been quite a few years now,
right.
I've always thought that was a great approach to it, because you're not standing up in front of a group of 200 people talking about something that you haven't ever done, or that's not practical and not hands-on. You're giving them, like you just said, on-the-job training.
On-the-job training.
So I think I really like that model. And so with that training that you do, what is and investing, that combination, what is the spectrum, and what is your favorite or your main focus type of strategy?
Right. So I think that the basic of it is buying rental properties out of state.
Okay.
In good areas. So we don't go after crappy areas, old properties, severely old properties, bad schools. I call it the most boring real estate investment you can probably think of, right? Which
boring is good.
I find it super sexy. When I say boring, I get completely excited, because for me, boring translates, I can continue, maintaining my lifestyle, whether I'm working and busy and family and traveling, vacationing, and that property is, over there in the background, and it requires very little of my time and attention. It's not buy and forget, but it doesn't, occupy my mind, and doesn't occupy my day, makes me busy, and I utilize property managers who's probably going to take better care of that property. So the model
it's in your name even. It's simply do it simply is
exactly. So the whole point is, nice properties, good areas, good schools, out of state, where the numbers, nowadays, everybody is, and I think people understand more and more why out of state makes sense. So the numbers are easier, right? For me, a $250,000 house, boy, that's a fancy one. That's a really nice house in a really good area of part of, one of the better parts of suburbs. That's 250. Usually, sometimes we buy them as low as 120, and it's still a good, house. So I think this is, in my world, this is the holy grail. Well, I'm very biased on single family homes, and it's the American dream, but that's my holy grail. It's just the problem with that holy grail, one thing, you just have to be patient. Buy and let it sit there and let it grow slowly. It's not a way to get rich overnight or quick. This is a slow getting rich, scheme, not a quick getting rich scheme. But you got to be patient, and with a mortgage. So that's the number one kind of thing. Several years ago, we started flipping houses, and the only reason we started flipping houses, not because there is a sexiness to it, I admit there is, but more because it's supplementary to the holy grail idea of rental properties. And I help my investor generate short-term cash, right? And then we use that cash from the flipping, into the as down payments for the rental properties. So I look at it as the short-term engine, which is the flipping, feeds into my long-term engine, which is the rental properties. And
It's almost like a process. It's a feeder to the longer term.
Exactly. So, and so our second program is that, see, going back again to the map yourself, when I was thinking about creating the flipping system, was exactly wrote to myself a couple of things. One of those, the last two items on my flipping kind of list of before I started that I wanted to tackle was, number one, I got to be able to duplicate it. So I don't want to be a one-time flipper successful. I want to be able to duplicate it again and again and again. That means systems and processes. And the second thing I told myself right off the bat, I can do so many flips with my own cash, right? Whatever the number is, right? But if I open it to my investors and offer them the opportunity to be passive and do flipping with us, I will help them buy more rental properties, hopefully with us, but I will help their own wealth. So that was one of the things I decided, not just to flip on my own, which I could easily do, but enable others to join on board and flip, and they don't have to be experienced even. Right?
Yeah, and so you have people that come to you, they learn from you, they invest with you. They're not restricted from going out to do some of their own on the side, right?
I don't like restrictions. I always think, how would I like something as a consumer of investor? And sometimes I hear people, they're people similar to what I do, that they sign their clients on exclusivity. They won't buy a rental property in, I don't know, Dallas, for the next 6 months, only through them. And I see it as a weakness, because I got to do my job excellently, right, in a really good way in order to earn your business every time, right? So if I'm signing you an exclusivity, that means I may not be able to do my job. That means I'm not good at doing my job. So I'm not obligating anyone to do whatever they want. I have to push myself and my teams to do better and provide you with better results or services. And that will earn my business. I want you to come back to me. I don't want to force you confine you into some legal binding. That's for me. I wouldn't want to be that consumer on the other end. So
it's by choice versus by contract.
By force
choice or force, right?
Yeah.
And it's really about, I definitely can tell that. And I know you have the abundance mindset. There's plenty out there for everybody. There's just, instead of the scarcity, fear driven, you gotta protect everything we have. Life and business is so much easier when we come from the abundance mindset, where there's plenty for everybody, and let's all work together.
Absolutely. And it pushes me to do better. It pushes me. I need to earn my business with you every time we do a deal, right? That's the way I see it, right? And that means the burden is on me, not on you, as a service provider, for sure.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that, as a listener, I might be saying, well, I'm a little bit nervous about doing deals out of state or doing deals remotely. How do you address some of the concerns or the potential risks of dealing out of state?
Absolutely. That's a very good question, and maybe a little answered in a few ways. So first of all, you can do it on your own, right? And make sure you just work with the right people, which is not easier said than done, and research and spend all that time. And you know what? Fly out there, spend a day or two to know the market, to know the people you're engaging with. You'll probably do okay. It's not that I can't say can't guarantee that. The way I look at it is this: we are already doing this professionally, right? So we go out and we vet areas, teams, property managers, agents, everyone, right? We vet. We take time until we board someone to work with us to make sure they're good people to begin with. Now, when we vet them and we approve them, we train them to bring them to our level of communications, of how to analyze, what to look for, the communication standard we're expecting from them. The communication standard is expected for someone who is doing remotely, which is a little bit different than you do it locally. And so we train them. We work with them closely. I'm only talking about the local teams for the first few weeks or months, just to make sure everything is fine. And then we don't let them go. We just say, okay, you don't need our close attention. You can use our platform. and work with our investors directly, that's fine. And we keep at it. So I speak every week to one or two, at least every week, one or two property managers and one or two agents. And there's always a conversation. I'm not talking about the specific of this house. Just this week, I spoke to one property manager in Dallas, two agents, in Tampa and in Nashville. What do we need to change on our end to provide better services in today's market? Because the challenges of the market are of such. And we had lengthy conversation, and there's outcomes, and I'm actually going out there to do another visit to my teams in less than a month. And when I go out there, it's exactly to do that. It's not, we're not going to look at properties per se. We will, but it's more about how can we improve on multiple level for you, the investor, not for me. It's not about how I'm going to make more money or them. It's going to be how you can do better. If you'll do better, you'll come back to us to work with us, and you'll want to invest with us. That's for me the outcome. Now, so the second thing is when we go out there as a group, we have the buying power. So when I call the property manager, I can negotiate better fees for you. And when I'm on the phone with some issue with the property manager, it's rather easy for me to fix that problem, which is not going to be as easy for you because you own one or two or even three. So when I call the property manager, that's 100 properties on the line right there, right? Typically, we are the property management company's biggest account. You working with us, you're part of that account. By default, you belong to a big account. And right there, they don't want to, jeopardize the relationship because they know if they jeopardize the relationship, and which happened once, we terminated the company. And when I called them to tell them, I didn't terminate them on the spot. I told them you are on freeze for now on. And one of the co-owners told me, this is a very dark day for us. You simply do it is responsible for 30% of our growth. And we just lost, our biggest, growth engine. And the second growth engine is not even close to you guys. So that was a bad day. And he said, I'll do anything I can to win your business back. So for me.
So there's the efficiencies in the numbers. There's the efficiencies in the teams.
Systems, processes. I mean, we've done it all for you. And you know what? Because of the experience, my guess, I vet property managers 50 times better than you are, right? For me, it's a 2-hour conversation just to get to know them. Just to get to know one property manager, 2-hour conversation, and just at the beginning, just to give you an example. And I will talk to that property manager probably 6, 7, 8 hours until I approve them, right? And just one property manager. And I'm talking to multiple, just to give you an example. Same with the agents. And it doesn't stop just because we agreed to work together. It continues. We have to do better. So it never stops. And you benefit. For the way I look at it, if you work with a network, you have all this empowerment by systems and processes and knowledge and support before, during, and after, which you will have very limited and very minimal doing it on your own. And you know what? There is a fee for it, but if you look at the fee that we charge and what it's giving you, I think you will say it's probably cheap. I believe people think laugh behind my back and say it's cheap, right? Well, we don't charge a lot of money.
And what you're paying for, a huge value in risk reduction.
Absolutely, and I'll be the first to say we're not perfect. We're very good at what we do. I hear a lot of investors telling me it's been very smooth, but it's not. There's always unknown. There's always risk. We are trying to lower it even more, and increase your chances of success for sure.
You've obviously found your niche in real estate and this particular strategy in this market. Can you describe how you? Well, let's start with how you got involved with real estate and how you got made it to the Bay Area, and just a bit about your background and how you ended up choosing this strategy as your go-to business.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Israel, and as you probably know, in Israel, when you hit 18, you are drafted to the military automatically. It's not there's no way to go around it. So I went to 3 years to the military. I was at one of the special forces units, and that means you finish the military, later age than your American-based friend, and then you go to the university and get your degree, which I got my degree in engineering, and halfway through the university, I guess I was a little bit more mature at the time, but still a young guy. Two things happened. One, I found myself in a relatively big debt to my age, which I had no idea how I got there. So that was like a very eye-opening. It was just a big kick in the butt. It was a tiny, debt relatively to what I carry today, but at the time it was completely dark and rattled me completely, truly to the core. And the second thing is I noticed that when I look at my parents, my uncles, the older cousins, and my parents' friends, I see a pattern. They all work for corporate Israel, not corporate America, but corporate Israel, which is very similar, long hours. My dad, career military, I've barely seen him growing up because he was always, out there. And what do they have? So they're in their 40s, right? And what do they have? One condo, with a mortgage, and that's it. And I barely see them, and they work. My mom had 2 jobs, I would, and that just didn't add up. I didn't want to live this type of a life, and I could see that by school, it's already training me, my engineering to the workplace of the corporate Israel or whatever corporate life. And I didn't hate that thought. I just thought it cannot be about this, right? So between getting myself out of debt, I actually wrote down a recovery plan for myself and got myself through, while in school, already having some corporate, student job, making better money than waiting tables. I wrote myself a recovery plan. I'm not, we don't have time to go into the details. It's a story of its own. And I got myself out of debt, saved up a little bit money, and the realization that I cannot, follow the default path of my parents and corporate life as it is. I started looking for investments. I did some stocks and options, and it was very challenging at first. And then I became aware of the U.S. real estate, and I bought my first house in 2002 outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I did it completely sight unseen, not from the Bay Area buying in Phoenix, from Tel Aviv buying in Phoenix. Never been to Phoenix. Honestly, I had to look on the maps where Phoenix is. And that was my first investment. It did very well. I didn't plan for it. And I got to tell you, I was far from being mentally or financially prepared for the journey, because when that house sat vacant for 45 days, I got very nervous, very nervous. Nobody told me it could take 45 days, right? Now I tell my investors, listen, it could take a month, it could take a month and a half, it can take 3 weeks, but be ready. It's not like an overnight rent, it's not the Bay Area, right? The Bay Area, you list it at 5 p.m. and by 5:05 you have a signed lease, right? The Bay Area is the odd one, not the rest of the country. So a lot of the preparation, the mentality, I call it the calibrating expectations was not there, which I completely changed, today in my business. And that's what got me started. Obviously, in 2004, we decided, my wife and I, would just want to leave the challenging financial life of Israel, which you practically pay between all sales taxes and income taxes and whatever taxes. You're pretty much giving 70% of your income.
Wow.
70%. People don't think about it because your income tax is maybe 30 to 50, depending on your earning. But you have 100% tax on cars, 100% on gas. So all those things, sales tax is like 15, 16, 70%. So it's much. So when you add everything up, 70% of your income goes to taxes, which is crazy, right? You can't prosper. You can be a good person, work hard, long hours, even make good income, and you can still, cannot break that ceiling glass of, unless you go into, you're able to generate millions, and then that's the challenge. So we moved to the States, and I decided that this is what I want to do full time for my own sake, and then help others. And that's what I did since then. Working with others, helping them, guiding them, directing them, multiple markets. And on the top of everything, it's almost 10 years now that we had the crash, right? The big crash. The big crash, I hated it, right? I was very exposed. I got, it didn't, fly by me. It flew through me.
Right, I know that.
Because I was there with my own portfolio having challenges, but multiplied that time by so many of the investors that are having issues. And And I was taking calls every day, trying to help others, trying to encourage them, trying to uplift their morale, trying to not get, down and depressed by those conversations, which was very hard to maintain a sense of, optimism at the time. It was just hard, it was really dark time altogether.
Yeah, a lot of mind games going on at that point.
Absolutely.
For sure.
But that era taught me real estate to the core like nothing would.
Isn't that
nothing
true?
In my success days of booming had taught me even close to the nuances and the details that you're seeing when that happens. So I can't say that I'm not glad that it happened, but I can say that I'm not glad about it, because as an investor, someone who keeps learning, I am experienced. I have a lot of knowledge, there's no doubt, but I have not stopped, learning. It doesn't stop.
And going through something like that downturn, talk about learning risk management.
Oh my God, that's like that boosts your knowledge. Either you're quitting and it doesn't boost anything, or if you're in, it boosts your knowledge. Like crazy.
Yeah.
And I made I made two promises to myself at that era. Business was actually going down, a lot of activity, obviously. But I made two promises to myself. I said, number one, as long as those calls are coming in of the depressed and sad, and even if they want to blame me, and even if they want to punch me, I'm going to take that call. I have not ditched any single call, right? Mm-hmm. I told myself, there's a good chance I will be able to help them somewhat. There's a good chance I will even learn from them for something they're doing. And if neither, at least they have some punching bag, and I said, at least they'll know I'm here, mm-hmm. right? I made that promise to myself, and I did. I never broke that promise of not taking a call. That's number one, which is, not easy.
Yeah.
Number two, I said, the investor that I will work with, will mentor, I'll make sure I share with them all this information and knowledge and experience, so they can actually leverage and use my mistakes for their benefits.
Absolutely.
So that's, I think that, whatever they decide to use it or not, it will be on them, obviously, but at least I'm going to show them, what the mistakes and what things they can do better in order to avoid it. That's my wish for them. And I haven't broke that promise. Luckily, promise number one I kept, but the calls stopped coming in. So it's been a while.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a journey, eh?
Yeah. Oh my God.
So if listeners would like to reach out to you, how might they do that? And you and I were speaking right before this recording, and you have a book, an ebook that you were suggesting you might offer to listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an ebook that I wrote. I think it's very much my voice and and tone and simply written. It's not an extensive one. It kind of talks about in details, more structure, everything you and I have been talking, or some of the things you and I have been kind of conversing today. So they can download for free. And it's, you want me to give the address for that?
Sure. Yeah, and just on the book itself, it's the name of it is Remote Real Estate Investing in Rentals and Flips, and in that you talk about sort of that process that where you go from, it's almost like a feeder of starting with the flips and then feeding that into the long-term investing of rentals.
Kind of mostly trying to make sense and order and structure and kind of not just be, there's no hype in the book. Mm-hmm. There's no go get your dream of vacation. I don't like that type of message. Everybody knows it. Of course, we all want, I don't need to repeat that. We all have it. It's more structure, more, step-by-step kind of how to go about it, but in an organized manner, easier. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, and if somebody would like it, if you could, how would they reach you?
So our blog or main website is simplydoit.net, simplydoit.net, and the book is /ebook.
/ebook.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So just to recap, somebody who's getting started, if they're having challenges, not knowing when to pull the trigger, getting some training, going to classes, getting some getting the background, that sort of the education piece of it is obviously important, but your suggestion is at some point, sitting down, taking the time, writing out what it is that your plan is and what it is that you feel might be holding you back. What are the key points that you're questioning? Where are the gaps? Where are the gaps from where you are today and where you want to be in real estate investing?
Well put.
And getting that filled out. Once that's filled out, then working on teaming up with someone who's already doing it. Doesn't necessarily have to be a tight partnership. It can be more of a loose alliance or working relationship. And
I call it investment buddy.
Yeah, right.
Find your investment buddy. He's sitting right next to you in the meetup.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Turn around and that's it.
Yeah, investment / accountability buddy.
Yeah, absolutely, investment buddy. Absolutely, keep it simple, right?
Yeah. So that's great information. This has been really good. Any last bits of advice you want to share?
I would say one thing. Sometimes people do have a hard time finding that investment buddy, or they feel it's not really accountable, or they're not comfortable, or whatever. We close that gap for you. Mm-hmm. I am, in a way, but without even aiming for it, became other people's investment buddy professionally, right? I'm a professional investment buddy. Maybe that's that's a good terminology, because I do it exactly with my investors, because it's hard. I know it myself. Sometimes it's hard to step out of your body and look upon yourself and say, those are the things that I know. It's hard to clarify them. The investment buddy will help you, but if you don't have that, find that mentor. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it needs to be me. It could be you, Tom. It could be some of your other speakers. It could be, find that person who's already doing it in the niche or investment strategy you're looking to accomplish, and follow them, stick to them. Most of the people that that I know in the industry, when you work with them, they are willing to share. They're willing, they're passionate about your success, not about just their own. I'm sure there's some that are more passionate about their own success than yours, but there's plenty of good people out there that do it for a fee, or do it will just take time, whatever. Find that person. It doesn't have to be an investment buddy. Find that, whatever the niche.
Yeah, and finding somebody that will hold us accountable, hold us higher, to a higher level, a higher standard of getting things done, of really pushing us to accomplish what it is that we're aiming for. And somebody who's going to, basically challenge us to get us to that next level. And
it's not just the beginner, because you can have 7 properties or made X amount of investment of years and you're stuck. You are stuck and you're not really sure what to do. You need someone to unstuck you. Find that person. Maybe if you're experienced, actually investment buddy is going to be more challenging. So you really have to go after that mentor. We get stuck. It's sooner or later, some of us are good at pulling ourselves out of the stucking, the stuckness, and some have difficulties, right? So find that person to help you. I just had a conversation with an investor who realized California is not good anymore for his investment financially. He needs to go out of state, and he found that he's out of state. He's stuck how to pull the trigger, and he's been trying to do it for several months. We had a conversation yesterday, and he understands now why is the benefit. He told me, now I see why it's very beneficial. I'm experienced, and I see the benefit of working with someone like you, because I am stuck. He said it, his words, not mine. Yeah, and it's great to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. But really, there's so much value in sharing and working together and collaborating. Absolutely, it just truly a great value. So, Dani, I really want to thank you for taking the time to share this. I think it's been great information. Just really appreciate you doing this, and look forward to staying connected and another interview episode at some time in the near future. Love that, Tom. Thank you for having me. And you know what? I always think when I get to speak with you, it's always a pleasure conversation. I feel that there's a back and forth and contributing and ideas and thoughts. So I really appreciate it. Even I told you our early session before we started recording was a fun, quick session about a few things that we were just catching up. So yeah, many thanks for having me. I really appreciate you and the fact that you're, having me here. Likewise. Great. Well, thank you, Dani. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.